Tonight, hopefully, I'm going to shed a little bit more, just kind of like just a little bit more awareness about how every one of us really is a gut case. And that's what I'm out there. This week, I'm coming up. I'm going to Nashville. No, I'm not going to Nashville. I'm going to New Jersey. And that's one of the first 20 minutes that I'm talking to all the doctors. It's to essentially help them understand that every single human at this point is a gut case. And tonight we'll dive into that a little bit, and also to show us the things we can do, that we can, be doing on a daily basis to help our gut health. Because truth is, you get your gut going healthy, you fix your gut. And I don't mean just getting by like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my gut. But if you, just like you're going to work on your biceps or your fitness, you get your gut healthy, you get your gut working good, it'll probably be the most significant thing you will ever do for your health. And hopefully I'll shed some light on that tonight. And that's exactly what I talk about in the little speaking tour I'm doing now. And like I said, I'm going to Jersey, and I think the following week we're going up to Nashville, and I'm excited. And it's a little bit different every time because they're different doctors with different questions and different kind of paradigms and beliefs and philosophies, but they're real. So those doctors are no different than our audience tonight. And I know I have docs listening tonight, yet we're all in the same boat when it comes to this. And over all these years of working on gut health, I would like to say I've got it down pat, and I don't need to fix it anymore, but I'm sure I'll find ways to even get better at what I'm doing. And this is the kind of, the speaking tour is almost a culmination of all these, 20 plus years of literally just trying to navigate gut health. And tonight, a really important part. In fact, I'll go as far as saying this. Tonight's conversation it's a non-negotiable one when it comes to trying to heal yourself from anything. Yeah. When we talk about getting the body healthy, there's some non-negotiables, and maybe I'm just getting a little stubborn in my old age. But if there are people, and maybe we'll dive into this tonight, that just refuse to change some of their ways, I probably can't work with them because I know that the end result won't be what they want. And so for sometimes there's certain things will be non-negotiable, and I'll talk about some of those. And I'll talk to the doctors about that a fair amount while I go to the different cities here and let them know that it's okay to step up for their patients. Because if that happens and the doctor says, listen, you got to change some of your ways, can't keep putting crap in your body and expect better, good results. Then if they're doing it, then the patients have a little bit more of, or hopefully, I don't know if the serious is the right word, but kind of a profound, let's take a deeper dive here. So unfortunately, our healthcare system is not designed to help people that have gut issues. And I'm not knocking the healthcare system or the doctors or anyone that's working in our system right now, but it's not designed because it's a multifaceted, very complex situation that's taking place. But we've got it dialed in. So we'll dive in just a moment. I do have some clinical insights. First, let me just give a shout out and welcome to everyone to the Health Made Simple show. I'm going to do everything I can to continue to make health simple for you. Tonight is a perfect example of what it really takes. I'm going to cut through some of the details of all the logistics. Well, I'll give you logistics, but I'm going to cut through all of the different things that it takes to get into exactly what I'm going to share with you tonight about if you want to change your life, get your gut health dialed in, get some of the things we're going to talk about tonight dialed in, and then things get pretty simple for you.
Beautiful. I'm so excited that we are tackling this topic, Bart, from so many different angles. And I know part of what makes it so exciting of the speaking tour you've been doing is the men and women, the practitioners who are excited to create change, even if what they're offering to their patients. So it's really inspiring all around.
It's one of the motivating factors for me when I go, that I know if I can, impact, X amount of doctors to then go impact their communities, and the messages become similar across state lines and from community to community, more and more resources become available, more and more, coaching and strategies become available, and ultimately people get better, which is great.
Beautiful. Yeah. Feeling good from your gut is the best way to feel, for sure.
So I have a clinical insight. Before we dive in, I'll share, if you guys are new to the show, of course, we're going to try to do everything we can to make health simple. So meaning that you can take actionable steps when we get done the show here tonight, or if you're listening this via recording. But I also like to share with you clinical insights. And these clinical insights are literally insights that I have when I'm practicing. Like, for example, today, I'll give you an insight that I experience today, where it's, man, I think this would be a good one for all of us to hear, because I think all of our ears would benefit from this one. So this seems to be another common theme that I have conversation about in my office. So a young man, again, anyone around my age, I call young, just a little bit younger than me, he's about 48 years old, came in and he tweaked his low back about 3 weeks prior. And since then, it's been getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And when he came in, he said, Doc, I don't know what else I can do. So we're 3 weeks after he tweaked it. He said, Doc, I don't know what else I can do. I exercise, I stretch, I do some yoga, I play some pickleball, I lift weights, I'm eating good. What else can I do? And I said, well, this is the first time I've seen you in 3 weeks. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because sometimes, and this is what's relevant, this is the insight. Sometimes we're looking to do the absolute minimum. And I understand it, especially if you're a guy, you get it, because we are knuckleheads, right? That's what we do. We believe, like, why would I do anything extra for my body and before it's not completely broken? So in that conversation, I said, well, hey, listen, the challenge here isn't what to do, it's that you're a knucklehead, because there's plenty for us to do. And I said, what have you done the last couple of days? He said, well, I did get a massage yesterday and I'm here to get an adjustment tomorrow, and I'm on your schedule in a couple of days. So he waited all that time, 3 weeks of essentially down-regulating, beating his body up, being in pain, until he finally took some action. So this was my message for him. And I said, listen, it goes like this. Every single day you're aging, period. If you're not doing more at this point next year than you are right now, then you're going to be less than you are today. And that's the message I send to everyone. Listen to this. You got to continue to do more and more for your body, your mind, how you move, how you eat, and how you think. And at any point, if you think, man, I used to do more last year, you were probably a healthier, stronger human being last year. So that's my simple health. But I think it's more of a message saying, stay on top of it. Enjoy staying ahead of it. And I know, listen, that's not a common mentality. It's not taught to us early. We're essentially taught a very black and white model with our health. Either you're sick or you're not. Not necessarily that you're healthy and function like a strong human being, but we're essentially taught, if you have symptoms, let's take care of those symptoms. But prior to having symptoms, really the message is don't do anything. And I'm trying to flip that script as much as I can.
I think it's such a good reminder, Bart, to continue the path of health. So sometimes you get something going for you that's working really well, but also like tending the garden. It's like paying attention and not thinking just because I have another year under my belt, it's like a reason to feel less strong and like less like yourself.
Yeah. And I think many people, especially listen to this podcast, you're on a health journey and you subtly recognize that what you used to do won't cut it anymore. That we have years upon years of compounding impact, and most likely a lot of it negative. Think about how many toxins you've put into your body, how many cans of beer had to flow through your liver, right? You think about all the different things that you've done through the course of your life that get you to this point. I think most of us should be very grateful that we're still healthy as we are. And moving forward, we have to kind of pick up the speed. And the beauty is nowadays, you pick up your phone and you can have information and strategies right at your fingertips, because there's so many good things and so many men and women out there that are sharing, similar podcasts like this or whatnot, that there's so much information right at our fingertips to literally move ourselves forward faster than we ever have.
Yeah, it's like the pace is only going quicker. So it's really cool to have a moment to make it a bit simple to decide like what you can bring in. So when we bring that around to gut health, Bart,
Yeah.
I'm super excited to hear what you have to offer for us this evening and how we can kind of simplify feeling good from the inside out.
Yeah. So the way we're going to approach it tonight is we're going to talk about the very first part of getting gut health. And I think this is probably also the most overlooked part. So to some degree, this is like the secret to gut health. And the reason I say this is a secret is that after doing a couple cities here and talking to the docs and the messages that they're sending, I see there's a flaw. And these are health docs. These are men and women that are already either in the functional medicine, functional nutrition space already, or kind of dipping their toes into getting into there. So, and what I discovered is that there's not a hard line. So we're going to take this in two directions. One, there's not a hard line on making sure that the diet has got dialed in. So the very first part of getting your gut health correct is what I call remove. We got to remove all the bad guys coming in, not some of them, not kind of, sort of, not I'm doing pretty good. If you are in any type of a healing crisis or you just literally want to level up, it is imperative, not optional, that it's time to dial in. And this is a hard message, but this is a message I've learned as a practitioner. And this was a tough one to swallow. Where 8 years ago, I have the old PowerPoint presentation where I gave a presentation and I showed everyone that the 80-20 rule was acceptable. I was teaching,
okay.
yes, I was teaching other docs, this is what you should teach your patients. Over time, in practice, almost a decade later, I'll say absolutely, positively, no way, no how will that work. The 80-20 rule is unacceptable when it comes to trying to be a healthy human being, to be a strong human being. It is not going to get you the results you want. And I think it's really a soft. And I think back and I was too soft at the time because there's so much desire to, literally when I think about why would I say something like that? Because I don't practice it. I don't practice 80%. I practice all in. I'm going for the best. Now, with that being said, for those of you out there, when you heard, well, you shouldn't shoot for perfection, I disagree. I think you should shoot for it. Just like if you were at the shooting range, you shoot for the bullseye. The likelihood of hitting the bullseye, who knows? Depends on how good a shot you are, but you're still shooting for it. So I think when it comes to getting clean, and when I say clean, we get 100% all the crap out of your diet. If it's not from God's garden, you don't put it in. If it doesn't have one ingredient, all of it has to come out. And I think any message that's shy of this becomes a hidden secret, becomes a hidden kind of poor message. And I think right now there's a lot of folks that are falling into, or in the back of their minds, almost want to hear it, but no, damn truth, it ain't right. And I think this is where the doctors, us practitioners, are the ones that really need to step up, which then it filters down to the parents. And this is a tough one because I get it. I fully understand when the parents say, but Johnny doesn't eat this and Johnny doesn't eat that. Well, I tell you what, then Johnny's not going to heal. Right. And then what happens there, and this is the challenge, is when we go half-ass at it, we say, well, that didn't work. So therefore, we're going to have to do something else. And you end up making more extreme decisions that are essentially easier to take the action, but more consequential downstream. Like they could have more side effects. Then we get into drugs and we get into surgeries, which you can't really turn back from. So when it comes to diet, you got to go all in 100%. Are you going to be perfect? The likelihood is no. Do you have to shoot for it? Yep. Inevitably, there's going to be an ebb and flow. So that part of it, very, very simple. So Health Made Simple show, we're cleaning up. The first part of gut health means that you have to remove the bad guys from coming in.
So I could probably figure what some of those bad guys are, Bart, but I know you're not just saying cut out sodas. I know we've got probably a pretty good list here.
Yeah, and we'll start with the basics. So gluten has to go. So gluten is in probably 70% of every day. What people put in, especially Americans, as our diet is gluten. It has created such a massive level of inflammation in the body, systemic inflammation, that if the gluten is still there, the likelihood of healing from anything on a good, you can get a little better. And listen, this is what I did. I did this for a decade of helping people get a little bit better. And I watched it around with my other practitioners, and people were constantly getting new protocols and new efforts and new, oh, doctor missed this and doctor missed that, but we weren't getting to the root causes of things. In order to get to the root cause of things, we have to stop the insult of things coming in. And then I'll even see practitioners. So say someone in the medical professional will say, well, the patient might ask their medical doctor, doc, do you think I have to get off gluten? And they'll say, well, I could test you for celiac disease, but you'll be fine with a little bit of gluten. It's no big deal. That's 100% wrong. And the reason I say that is because I've heard that come back to my office multiple times. So gluten will trigger an inflammatory response in all of us, not some of us, all of us. There's no nutritional benefit for it. So really, it boils down to a strong discipline. And in a moment here, we start talking about some of the other things that we have to remove from the inside out. We'll talk to you why that attachment to gluten is so strong, and other sugars for that matter. So the gluten's going to have to go. The processed foods are going to have to go. the sugars that we're constantly eating will have to go. All of these things, that they're creating inflammation in the body. Here's the simplest way of saying it. If you become inflamed because of the food you're putting in your body, your immune system, your immune defense, your immune energy has to be reallocated. Instead of healing, it has to defend itself. So imagine if just a little bit, 80% or 20% of the time of the week, let's say 2 or 3 days a week, you were, eating poorly, then you would always be playing catch up and you'd never really get there.
You know what that makes me think about is like if I had a whole week where I was only sleeping like half the night, and like how I don't know, kind of like worthless I would be at like being my fullest self at the end of that week, but like doing that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great analogy. So if we were poor sleepers, or we allowed the interference of sleep to take place on a regular basis, just a little bit, the overall impact would be really, really poor. And listen, I get, because our culture is so hooked around bread and pasta, muffins and crackers and fast foods and all of these different types of, I don't even like calling them foods anymore. I don't think that's fair. I think we just call them things that we're putting into our body that are causing adverse reactions and systemic inflammation. So these things that we're putting into our body, they're so abundant and they appear to be very inexpensive relative to other foods, where really the other foods are the right price and these foods are just super cheap because they're just not healthy for us. So I understand, but I also been on both sides of this. I grew up, I ate gluten every single day for 45 years of my life. And everyone goes, "Oh my God, Bart, that was a lot of gluten." Well, so did you. You maybe not 45 yet, but that's what we do. We wake up and we have breakfast and cereal and muffins and crackers and pancakes. And we have a sandwich for lunch. Maybe we have some pasta or something at dinner. So it's there. So the reason I'm kind of bringing up the gluten is if you have a gut issue and you want to have optimal health, it is one of the things that'll have to go. And don't waste the energy of comparing. Inevitably, will someone say, "But I don't get it. My cousin, my neighbor, my uncle, my dog, they eat gluten all day long." Maybe their time is coming. Maybe they're genetically a little bit different. But if you are thriving or your desires to elevate your health, that'll be a non-negotiable point for you.
Hard line at gluten. Okay, Bart. So that is the first thing that we are definitely removing if we are intending to heal our guts.
Or to make it the simple way, we could just say, let's go back to God's garden, right? If it comes from a root plant tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea, eat it, right? So that one ingredient food list is a super fantastic one. And that makes it really simple, right? So if you go to the grocery store, you stick to the perimeter and we look, what should I eat today? Well, I'm just going to eat anything on the perimeter here because it has one ingredient. That is a great, simple place to start. It might confuse us because we go, well, wait a minute. There's no gluten out there. There's no bread. There's no muffins. There's no crackers. No bag that I open up, stick my hand in, and put it into my mouth. And that's not how food was designed, right? We've never had it that way before. So, all right. So the other one, this is going to be a little bit different because I think it's overlooked, partially because we don't want to look at this one. This is taking a look on the inside. And so when we're trying to heal the gut, there's really four phases. I think, let me put this in context so people understand. We got to remove all the bad guys. When I say remove the bad guys, it's the bad guys coming in, but we also have to remove the bad guys that are in the body currently, that they've taken up residence and they're just hanging out. They're getting free lunches, free dinners, free breakfasts, and they're just hanging out using our resources and potentially down-regulating our hotel. So we've got to do some inventory. We got to check out who's not paying rent, and we got to get them out if they're there.
All right, I have the creepy crawlies already. Keep going.
And those particular ones that are not paying rent are what we call parasites. You can call them parasites, you can call them worms, whatever you want. There's a couple popular ones. There's the tapeworms, there's the pinworms, there's the roundworms, hookworms. A lot of those fall into the category of what's called helminths. They're multi-cell worms. So they're not just a single cell, they're multi-cell, they're growing. Some of them have little faces on them. Some of them have little teeth on them. There's other ones called liver flukes. They live in the liver. And listen, there's nothing pretty about this. I'm still mortified. Like I still have these dreams about when I was back in school and I had to watch hours upon hours of video of worms coming out of people. It just horrific. Just things you can never get out of your mind. Anyways, they're real. We got to deal with them. Everybody has them. We'll talk a little bit in just a moment how we get them, where they're coming from consistently, what kind of symptoms they're causing. Yet there's all different kinds. And what's fascinating about them is that you can have what's called liver flukes, and they'll live in the liver. They'll literally burrow into your liver, and they can create all kinds of liver challenges. They can congest the liver. They can inhibit hormones being properly broken down. They can inhibit cholesterol. You can have higher cholesterols because the liver is not able to metabolize the fats. So these little liver flukes get in there. They're not huge, but they can get in there and they multiply. And next thing you know, you have a pretty good life, a pretty good nutrition paradigm in your life. You're doing things pretty good. We got these liver flukes, and you can show up with something called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I see it all the time. And we can just downregulate liver function. Then it can lead into other things. Now, remember, if we downregulate the liver function, and liver flukes, folks, are very common, unfortunately, they're probably in the top 2 that we have. And if they inhibit your liver, remember in Chinese medicine, we say that liver, we live by the way of our liver. So having optimal liver function, super important. It is no doubt one of the, the more important components to make sure that we're taken care of so we can essentially thrive in our lives. But if we have disrupted liver function and the liver is now defending itself from the inside out because it's got some peeps hanging out there, not paying any rent, living, eating, and drinking for free, that's problematic. Now we're going to have all kinds of issues, including hormonal issues. So there's the liver flukes. Probably the single most common worms we're looking at or we see are pinworms. They're small, little white guys. See them in kids a lot. See them in kids stool a fair amount. Sometimes they'll come out. We'll talk about when they come out. Almost all these worms, they're nocturnal. They like come out at night. So there's a certain amount of activity that takes place at night. I know this is a fun conversation, right? So
yeah, I'm really into it.
Yeah. So I want to paint the picture so we recognize that they're there, because this is what happens when you do something about them. And I'll talk a little about our protocol today. When you do something about them, you will feel like a different human being. When you improve your gut. Now, I don't want to mislead anyone and say all you have to do is get rid of your worms, because then you have to repair the damage. So as I'm on this little speaking tour, essentially what I'm teaching the other docs is really a four-tiered system. You got to remove everything. You got to replace the things that were missing. Then you got to repair all the damage. Then you got to rebalance everything. Tonight, we're going to focus mostly on the remove. But if you get this down and you get with a practitioner, this is a situation I would tell you to do this properly. Most likely you're going to need someone who has been down this road, because there's a good chance you could have symptoms. You might be concerned with them, and they're no big deal. Yet nonetheless, there's these little guys are hanging out, they're living in our body, liver flukes, and there's pinworms and there's roundworms. Here's what's also pretty fascinating. So we can get them in all different places, and we can get them from different meats. So I think a lot of people know you can get them in raw fish, right? Like sushi. Pork is a very common area that you're going to pick up. That's probably one of the more common areas you can find these different types of roundworms and tapeworms. And then there's different types. This is kind of interesting. There's more than I want to know about them, but there are very specific worms that we call them beef worms, and there's pork worms, and there's fish worms. Yeah.
So even like from prepared meats, this can happen.
Yes, it can happen. So, when we cook, we don't necessarily cook and kill everything, right? And there's even some worms that can burrow themselves, especially in pork, and survive. Some of those parasites will survive through grilling. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I know. Fun stuff.
I imagine, Bart, that there's probably like these creepy crawlies in more people than we would expect. Is kind of what I'm hearing here. Okay.
Billions of people. I would say that everyone must consider that they have parasites.
Okay. So a great thought. I'm so excited that we are not at the end of the show, and you're going to lead us through a couple of things to do about this.
I am. So we're going to go a little deeper here, so we can understand Like, could you get them? Could I get them? Who's getting them? So I don't know. You see my dogs in the background. If you have dogs, you got worms. Yes. So I used to think, well, how does that happen? Is it because I have to make out with my dog to get worms? Right? I have to trade saliva. I don't do it, but my wife's definitely been known to trade saliva with my dogs. She's gonna get mad at me for saying that. But I know there's a lot of people listen to this that definitely get kissed by their dogs nonstop. Right. But I might
Just a little
sleep.
bit of love, just a little
Yeah,
bit of love.
a little bit of love here and there. So what's fascinating is that they can sneeze on you, they can breathe on you, and the eggs come out. And that, just like that, you can contract them.
Bart,
So,
you said eggs from a sneeze? Sir.
correct, I did. Oh, yeah. So the other thing here too is and we'll get this when we get into the symptoms. And one of the challenges, because people are certainly going to be wondering, well, how do I know if I have worms? And really, we joked about this in one of the other shows, but you really you take your pulse, and if you can find a pulse, you got worms. So everyone who has a pulse basically has worms. That's the way it goes. There are stool tests out there. Listen, folks, I wouldn't rely on them. I have them. I have all the tests. When people want me to take the test, I will do the stool test, but they'll miss half of them because they're nocturnal. You're probably taking a stool test during the day, most likely, right? And so there's a good chance that you're going to miss them. And, I can remember when I used to, I would say I worked there, but I would be in the back clinic of my vet's office. And we would look at stool samples from dogs, and you could see the worms in the poop. And then you'd put it under a microscope and you'd miss them depending on the sample size. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's not 100% accurate. So
in the absence of testing, Bart, and if you do have a pulse, are there perhaps some other symptoms that we might be looking for?
yeah, and those are the ones. So they really range. So I'll tell you some of the classic ones. Itchy anus at night. And a lot of people go, phew, I don't have that. I don't have worms. No, that's just one. That just happens to correlate to pinworms. That's it. But pinworms being one of the most common. But your children, that's a symptom you ask them. Do you have itchy butt at night? Does your butt itch? And they say, yeah, mommy itches every night. And they got pinworms. They're getting these things. Their fingers are dirty. They're picking up the food that hit the ground right next to the dog bowl. They're eating some of the dog food, all of that stuff, right? So it's not that difficult for kids to get them, and they pass them back and forth. You want to bite of my burger? Sure, I'll bite of your burger, and they're just passing them back and forth. So itchy butt, anything related to skin, like skin issues just in general. It could be random rashes. It could be hives. It could be itchiness. Skin itchiness is a classic one. So you're like, I'm just itchy. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't see a lot of that clinically. I've missed a lot of it clinically in the past until I decided that, you know what, everyone's a parasite potential, client. So anyways, constipation. But here's the interesting thing, diarrhea. So one of the reasons of constipation, and probably not going to want to hear this part either, but your parasites are eating most of your food. And so nothing's coming out. And as a result of it, they're inflaming the intestines, they're breaking down the intestinal wall, they're burrowing in the actual wall. Eventually, they could even lead to leaky guts. That's what I mean by the damaged part. So we might be able to get them out, but we're going to have to fix all the damage taking place in there. So rashes, low energy, acne, bloating, no doubt, irritable bowel syndrome. Then there's the whole other issue of what it does to the gut. So a lot of the tapeworms and a lot of these longer ones, the roundworm, hookworms that are getting in the intestines. The challenge here is that they beat up the intestinal wall, and it can change the pH in the gut. So a good question would be, well, how do they change the pH? Well, parasites are living organisms. They eat and they poop. And that debris that they're releasing is very, very toxic to us. And that is probably one of the most overlooked considerations when it comes to systemic inflammation, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, because there's a constant element of toxicity in the body. And this is the part that for everyone listening, if you've cleaned up your diet, you've put in some tremendous efforts into your health, and you're still not well, you got to kill the bad guys. So you stop putting all the bad guys in, because I'll see this a lot clinically. Doc, I've done it all. My diet's been clean for the last year. I'm exercising the best I can, and I'm still not feeling right. Most likely, there's something still disrupting you from the inside out, causing this systemic inflammation. So there's, the rabbit hole keeps getting deeper here, but nonetheless, there are other symptoms. Now, when it affects the gut, one of the other challenges that we have is that the gut is where many of the neurotransmitters are being born. That's where they first start development, and then pass up into the blood-brain barrier, and then the body, like the pineal gland and whatnot, helps develop these. Anyways, these are things like serotonin and dopamine. So without those, or too high or too low levels of those, now we start to tie into depression and anxiety and ADD and ADHD and PANS and Tourette's, and all of these. So if they, if you see, if you go to a functional medicine doctor, most likely, especially someone like myself, if you come in with ADD, ADHD, PANS, Tourette's, anxiety, depression, on the table is parasite involvement. And it absolutely positively. And if you have a loved one, if yourself, you're dealing with these neurological components, don't dismiss the fact that this could be a parasite. And literally you could be 30 days, 60 days, 100 days away from being an entirely new human being. Because once you kill them off, they stop the disruption. So I've seen too many situations where the diagnosis has been flipped upside down and eradicated as a result of just getting rid of parasites.
And sometimes even like chronic conditions can be considered like just as the condition. So if the parasites are never addressed, maybe like sinusitis sticks around, or like IBS.
Yeah, 100%. So sinusitis is an interesting one, because there are parasites that live in the sinuses. It's not uncommon for someone who has chronic sinusitis that there is parasitic involvement there. So when we go to heal, we're trying to heal it all. The mucosal lining, we're increasing the immune system. So a couple other symptoms, and these are huge ones. People now can relate to this. Maybe you went through that whole list. You go, no, that's not me. I don't have any of that. My gut's perfectly fine. I have no issues with anxiety, depression. I have no issues with attention. None of that. None applies. No bloating, no diarrhea, no constipation. Carb cravings and sugar cravings. And these are interesting. So, and when I say they're interesting, is because there's many of us will know I'm not supposed to eat that, or I don't want to eat this stack of cookies right here. And you're looking at them, but there's such an overwhelming message from your gut to your brain, and that's coming from a host of parasites that are living there, that are overtaking the intelligence of the intestinal tract, and they're saying, "Please eat that cookie. Please feed us. We're living here rent-free, and we'd like to be fed 3 times a day." No, I take that back. We'd like to be fed 6 times, 8 times a day. Please do this now. And with all your willpower, you got nothing. And you reach for the cookie and you eat the cookie. And it feels...
It's a real moment, Bart.
It is.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's real. I've been there. We've all been there.
Oh, those are parasites talking. Little wormies inside.
Yes.
Just
yeah.
asking.
So,
okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's now, after we've kind of covered that, let's talk about how we talked about how do we get them, right? So we talked about some symptoms. Let's go a little bit farther in how we get them. Let's say people say, well, I don't have a dog and I don't eat pork, right? Vegetables, fruit, they have parasites on them. We can't, here the point is this, you can't avoid them. Can't. How about people out there that are walking bare feet on the earth, on the grass? Parasites are everywhere. These little worms are everywhere. And yes, they can penetrate and burrow through our skin 100%. That's exactly what they do. They can slough onto our skin. We wipe our skin later. We touch our eye, our mouth, and orifice. And we have the eggs moving forward. So very few, I don't really know a situation. Well, I'll talk about how we do defend ourselves, because that's kind of the point here. We got to get to that point. Can we live symbiotically? Can we live with parasites? I would say that we can. I don't think it'd be great to never do anything about them. And our diet and our lifestyle is going to be huge in that situation. So another symptom is inability to sleep at night. Not so much falling asleep, but the ability to stay asleep. So there's a time of the month, every month, where we have a full moon and a full moon cycle. And that is usually the time that the parasites are the most active. And that's where we'll see our dogs a little bit less obedient. That's where we see people a little more ornery, and a lot of people have poor sleep. So listen up. A lot of people go, oh, it's a full moon, I'm not sleeping good. Oh, it's a full moon, I'm a little cranky. a lot of the times that is because those parasites are wide awake during that time. They are more active during the moon cycle.
I love to hear it. It's great,
Yeah.
Bart.
Yes. So, and
What do
part of
we
what
do about these guys? Go
so
ahead.
part of what happens is the parasites will inhibit the production of melatonin, which then interrupts the serotonin. So then our happy feel good and our good sleep goes away for a couple of days, maybe a week, until it all balances back out. So, all right. So I think we kind of beat it down, right?
I think we're there.
Yeah, we're all in agreement that there's a good possibility that we all fall into this category. And I share this and shed some light on it too, just because I don't think it's not that difficult to make change here. And I think the harder part, quite frankly, is going to be the clean part. Parasite is going to be pretty straightforward, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But the harder part, so you give it some thought now, what is it going to take for you to get clean? What's it going to take? Is it going to take disease? Is it going to take that little thing to become a big thing? I pray not. And most likely for most of the people that are watching and listening to a podcast like this, that's probably not your MO at this point in your life. You're looking to get ahead. You're looking to figure out how to level up, but hopefully not. So, all right, let's dive into it a little bit.
Here we are.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into it just a little bit about what we can do to defend it. And I'll kind of go through what the natural defenses are for human beings on a regular, everyday basis. Let's say you're never going to run into a functional medicine doctor with all the special protocols and special herbs and whatnot of how and what to do. But let's just say on a daily basis, there's really three things that it boils down to. One is your immune system. So as you know, I've been speaking for a little bit. I spoke to a lot of groups right after the pandemic, and we were looking at, I don't know if I can say this without making this episode get canceled, but I'll say anyway. So we're talking about something called long hauler syndrome, and people coming up with all different reasons of why. And it came down to four things. And one of the three reasons that people would have long hauler syndrome is because of what was on the inside of their body, Epstein-Barr parasites. And the virus activated those, it made them go free. So they were able to get out of the hotel and play, party wherever they wanted as much as they wanted. There's no defense mechanism. So that made our immune systems even more compromised. So they just couldn't recover because now all the, essentially the inmates were out wreaking havoc. And a lot of people are still suffering from long hauler syndrome a year later because they haven't fixed what's going on the inside. And then come with that, we have hair loss and whatnot. So, in parasites, they love different areas. So they love glucose, and they love amino acids. So there's just kind of another interesting component. So glucose and amino acids. When we put those two words together, that's glucosamine amino acids, right? So a lot of people are familiar with what glucosamine is. So glucosamine is a natural compound that our body has in between our joints. And we use this to have good, healthy joints. And over time, especially with aging or poor diets, we lose that glucosamine and we get things like arthritis or sore joints. Parasites love it. So they go to the joints and they eat it up. And that's part of arthritis, folks. That's part of when you hear the diagnosis, degenerative arthritis, degenerative disc disease, there's things in there chowing away. It's not always the only cause, but they're there because there's glucosamine there, and they love tendons. And that's one of the challenges as we get a little bit older. Our tendons start to break down. We have all these tendonitis. We have like golfer's elbow and tennis elbow and all these different itises, plantar fasciitis. All the tendons are now breaking down because they too, the parasites love to go to those areas where there's high glucose and there's high amino acids. And that's exactly where they're going to find a lot of them. So many different conditions can be related to this. All right, so let's talk about the natural defenses that a human has. So there's essentially three natural ones. One is your white blood cells, your immune system. This innate immunity to know that there's a bad guy in my house. He's got to go. Back to my first point. If you don't get yourself clean and you're dealing with, let's just pretend that you got 10 bad guys coming through the front door. The front door is your mouth, and there's already 10 bad guys sitting in your gut. Your immune system has to do double the work. You have to split the army so you can be less effective in defending yourself. That's how simple it is. So if we really want our immune system to take care of us, we got to take care of the house. We got to make sure no more bad guys are getting through the front door. So that's one part of it. The second part is our gut health. And when I say our gut health, I'm really talking about our ability to have a strong, so I shouldn't say gut health because we're working on that, but really our digestive enzymes, our hydrochloric acid in our stomach. So there's so many things that we talk about in terms of like just good for gut health. One of the reasons hydrochloric acid, which is something that's made right in your stomach, as long as you have a healthy stomach, but if you're on Tums and antacid and proton pump inhibitors and you are breaking down that acid, man, this is a free-for-all. This is a free-for-all for these parasites to get into your body. So we got to be really mindful about what we're taking there. So if we lower the acid in our stomach, that is part of the defense mechanism of making sure no one gets through the front door. A lot of the parasites, so I said it's in beef, I said it's in pork, I said it's in chicken and fish and fruits. When you eat it, it gets in your stomach and it's dead. In the event that we are overeating, not chewing our food, eating under stress, drinking alcohol simultaneously on antacids, taking proton pump inhibitors, and we're decreasing the amount of acid in our stomach, body can't defend itself. So problematic. And when you think about it, you think how many people are on or have been on those types of things. And that's a huge, huge, huge number.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there's ways I know we can support that, but like our body's natural defense would be to have like a healthy amount of that hydrochloric acid inside.
100%. Yeah, we all have it. We produce it, over time. And they say as you age, it goes down. I don't know if it's really age that does it or the fact that they say basically around 30 to 40 years old, your hydrochloric acid in your stomach declines. I don't know if it's age genetically. We still haven't say, well, it definitely does go down. A lot of people it goes down. When I would argue the point that it's going down because of lifestyle, because we've beaten down our stomachs and therefore we see less production of hydrochloric acid. That's just a natural degenerative part of aging. So and then the last part is diet. So as much as improving our diet by not putting the bad guys in, the other part of our diet is that when we start to put the right things in our body and we start to use things like garlic, for example, garlic's phenomenal. It's a defender of the body. So garlic by itself will kill off a fair amount of different parasites. Now, again, before anyone rushes out and be like, well, I'm just going to eat garlic every day. Awesome, right? So that's going to help, but you can't eat garlic and all the bad guys and expect the garlic's going to do enough for you. Right? And then there's some other things. I want to just list off some other foods just top of my head. So coconut oil is phenomenal. Yeah, so
consuming coconut oil.
Just consuming coconut oil. It inhibits their activity. So for the most part, when we're consuming, especially if you're cooking it, maybe you put a little bit in your coffee or whatever it may be, if you consume it regularly, it inhibits the ability for them to essentially migrate, which is nice. So they're not going to move that much. And then it also inhibits them from spreading. So coconut every day, a little bit of garlic every day. A lot of your bitters are going to be very effective. I said the garlic already. And then there's some phenomenal herbs like golden seal and pumpkin seeds. Phenomenal. That's actually one of the ways that you can just help kill off and slough off parasites. So there are a lot of things that when I say this, people go, wait a minute. I have pumpkin seeds in my salad. I had coconut oil. I cooked with it tonight. And I had garlic tonight when I cooked. So there's a lot of people walking around that they're not putting a lot of junk in their body and they're using a lot of these natural killers. So they're doing really good. And maybe they use a digestive enzyme. And we'll talk about that one in just a moment. Or maybe they're not, but maybe they use apple cider vinegar, which that would enhance the hydrochloric acid effect in the gut. So there's a lot of built-in protection mechanisms. So the other part is it's what's fascinating here is that you would think that we have probably a more sanitary lifestyle now than we used to say 100, 200 years ago, right?
Yeah, or even just like hyper recently with like the overuse of kind of just like sanitizing gel, like hand sanitizer on every countertop.
Yes, which is fascinating because we have more people with parasite problems now than we ever had. And people used to live like sleeping on the dirt. Yes. So it's interesting that our hyper sanitation methods of killing off. So we use those hand creams or whatever they were, the hand sanitizers and spraying everything down. Remember, we're also killing our natural barriers. And these are the type of things that over those 3 years or 2-3 years during the pandemic, we heard a lot of people talk about, but they were really stifled when we say, listen, we got to be careful here. we might be setting ourselves up for a worse situation if you're killing off all your natural barriers, what we call your innate immunity. So we definitely have the ability to defend ourselves. So you don't have to get rid of your dogs. Don't do that, right? And cats and all those good guys. Don't get rid of your chickens, right? So
Don't
right?
do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Keep all your pets and animals. You can get yourself stronger. You can get yourself so you can have a natural immunity. With that being said, I would probably lean in the direction of saying that everyone would benefit from going through an overhaul where you remove all the bad stuff coming in and you also remove the bad guys that are there. And it's not very difficult. There's different phases to it though. So, and again, I know I'm beating a dead horse when I say this, but it won't work if the bad guys are coming in. If the bad food, if the sugar, if you continue to feed them and fuel them, the carbohydrates, the simple processed foods, the glyphosate, the fluorides, all of the things that require your immune system to be distracted. The gluten, all of those. So gluten, again, you have glyphosate in it, you have phytates in it, would take vitamin C and zinc, they take it out of your body, so you become nutrient deficient. At the same time, you become inflamed. And then of course, gluten converts. Gluten, so bread, will metabolize into the bloodstream faster than sugar does. Yeah.
How can that be?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, not man-made. So sugar is still a natural compound. So like naturally occurring sugar, unfortunately, it is bad for us now, but it's not a bad food. Does that make sense? Like fruit is not bad for us. Fructose is not bad for us. Because our bodies are so beat up, we now have to have conversations about having like too many bananas, which is silly, right? But we have to have them because we have overdone all the other bad stuff. So again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's imperative that we get clean. Then we go to work on those parasites. So we stop all the bad guys from coming in. And for some people, I put these in phases. Say, all right, just work on getting clean this month. Cut out the gluten, reduce the alcohol, eliminate the alcohol for 30 days, something like that. So we just have the body getting a little bit more resilient. And then we might do the protocol. And so one of the things before we, I will mention some of the herbs, but I will also mention this. Many times I'm perfectly comfortable in saying you can just completely do this on yourself, on your own. I would work with a practitioner. I really would. So someone that could guide you and help facilitate the strategy, and also know that. So I'll talk about the first 30 days, and there might be more phases that you might need to go through. And if your health is what's dangling in the background and you are working through some stuff, you've been diagnosed, you've got an autoimmune condition, you've got anything that I've just listed here or talked about here tonight, get with someone that's been familiar with this. It's not very difficult, but it's very strategic. So again, I almost want to say it's simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a very simple, methodical approach to getting rid of these. So first things first, I'm so excited for this. Clinically, I'll talk about some of the things I use here. I know we're getting close in time. There are binders that you can use. And for literally, I don't even know, probably 6-8 years, there weren't really any good binders on the market. Well, I use standard process for a lot of the different vitamins, minerals, herbs that I have. Well, the herbs come from MediHerb out in Australia. Yeah, they're cream of the crop, some of the best in the world, literally, if not the best in the world. And there used to be a product that had a bentonite clay in it. And the reason I'm bringing this up, bentonite clay was a binder. So you can bring it into the body, and it had essentially this innate wisdom, and that had to do with positive and negative charges. When a toxin's in your body, it has a positive charge. You bring in something that has a negative charge, it'll bind to it and get it out of the body. Beautiful. And that's what we can do with live foods. Veggies can do that kind of stuff. But these binders, the difference here is that when it bind to the top, the surface, it wouldn't absorb it into the cell and into the body. So it was binding to the top of it, and they could get out of the body. Unfortunately, and because standard process, and God bless them, they're so picky, they test everything that comes into their facility. And they found that even the bentonite clay, which is thousands of years old, had been contaminated with glyphosate from the rain.
That is such a bummer.
Bummer. It was one of those moments I had a really love-hate moment, because it was so effective in helping people heal on this phase, removing from the inside out. Well, anyways, long story short, a couple of months ago, they came up with a very similar product similar in the effect of physiology, different in product though. This is what's called a clineptolite. It's a form of zeolite. Those are all technical things, and really it's an ancient ash that where these ancient minerals at the same place that they met the marine life or kind of the aqua, where they come together, that is where they extracted these from. And this is what they have. It's called a clineptolite. That and it's a binder. So all that was just kind of technical stuff, but all you need to know is that it's a binder. And this binder adsorbs, not not absorbs into the cell, but it adsorbs to the top of the cell. So when it's in your body, you take these, a couple of these little capsules, it's binding to everything that's not supposed to be there. It is my absolute favorite, a must protocol. This is something actually with that I would recommend everyone taking. So let's say there's no parasites, there's nothing, but every day we're still exposed to fluorides, we're exposed to just all kinds of toxins. The clothes we have, it all have toxins on them. They all have, flame retardants. So there's so many toxins floating around. We've talked about the forever chemicals here. It would bind to those. So it's something called GI adsorbent. Maybe we can put it in our show notes today. Very simply, you take 2 capsules in the morning, 2 capsules at night, take it away from food, let it kind of lead the way. There's no wrong way to do it, but the beauty is this, it won't bind. So sometimes people are like, well, isn't charcoal a binder? Charcoal is a binder, but it binds to everything. It'll bind to your medications, it'll bind to your supplements, it'll bind to your food, and it leaves you void of them. The beauty of this has kind of one of those innate properties to it where it doesn't. It's just binding the bad guys. So in this initial phase where we're trying to remove all the stuff bad coming in, now we're trying to remove it out, this has been one of the absolute best things. But by itself, it's not a killer. It is a remover, but it's not a killer. So now we got to kill it off. And probably the 3 most commonly used worldwide herbs for destroying parasites are wormwood, clove, and black walnut. And there's a product we use called Wormwood Complex that we use to do this. But then here's a key thing, folks. One of the other reasons it is so critically important that we are clean going into this is because we're going to create a lot of debris, meaning you're going to kill things off. Toxins are going to be back into the system. 2 things we want to make sure that happen. We can bind them. The one I just talked to you about, GI Adsorb, is phenomenal binding onto those. There's another one that's a must. It's called Zymex. And this is another, think of it as an enzyme, and it's going to go eat up, it's going to eat up and kill off these different parasites, break down some of the eggs, but also bind to the debris. So we're going to have 2 different things that are helping remove all of these dead freeloaders out of our body.
So it's not only the freeloaders, but it's also their waste products. Like everything's going out, right?
Yeah. So really what happens is it is the waste product of the parasites that's probably the most detrimental on human health. Yeah. And so there's one thing to talk about parasites. It's the other thing to talk about parasite poop. That's just not, there's no room for that conversation, but nonetheless, we just had it. And yeah, so that is what creates so much toxicity in the body. So your everyday binder, GI Adsorb, is something that was just phenomenal of helping getting this debris out of the body. Because this is what happens. If you don't have the other things in there and say, well, I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to take a whole bunch of wormwood. And sometimes people do that. You might kill off a tremendous amount of the parasites. Unfortunately, they're going to recirculate into your lymphatics. And then they're going to spread it. And then they go into the blood. And then they go to the heart. And then they go back to the liver. So then they just recirculate all these toxins. And that's not what we want to do, because unfortunately, then you can actually have a lot of symptoms. And it's like, well, this didn't work, and I'm going to stop the program. And that is where working with someone who has kind of been down this road and knows what to expect and knows when to back off and kind of speed up, someone that's just familiar with, working through the entire journey, because you might do the first journey we usually go on is just 30 days. 10 days on, 10 days off, 10 days on, kind of relatively simple. And then after that, depending on your symptomatology, what you did or did not notice, you might go deeper and you might extend this out and you might incorporate some other things all the way out to about 100 days, 120 days with the same kind of rules in place. No bad guys are coming in. We're getting rid of all the bad guys that are on the inside.
And Bart, would you be able to help someone out if they wanted to start on that journey?
Yes, very simple. And most likely if you're local, obviously you could just kind of come by. Probably in this scenario, where this is where doing a Zoom a call where we do virtual, so I can do, anywhere, anytime, not anytime, but anywhere, where literally can be in Chicago or Tennessee or New Jersey for that matter. And we sit down and we go through it all, because you heard the list of symptoms here. And it's important that we're also, because the other part of this is we're going to have to replace all of the deficiencies. So just because we get rid of the worms doesn't mean that you're going to be healthy now. There's good chance. So and the symptoms help us understand what the deficiencies are, and then we got to repair. Most likely we're going to have to repair damaged areas. Maybe we got to heal up the liver. Maybe we got to heal up leaky gut. So absolutely can do it. And again, this is one of those situations where, and I will say, no doubt about it. You change your gut, you change your life. No doubt about it.
I know that's a path that I think you yourself have walked and have been on both sides of that coin.
A little about my personal journey with all of this, that most of my life, I've never had an issue with being like overweight or anything like that yet. There's most of my life, I would always have to suck my gut in because it was always bloated. And so I always exercised. That was never an issue for me. So that was kind of my compensation. I would always exercise, but my energy would always be questionable, because I always felt like something was draining. So I was the one that was always snacking. But because of how, physically active I've always been, I kind of got away with it, quite frankly, in terms of just aesthetics of not, gaining too much weight. But my gut has always been a mess, always, and all different types of joint pains, you name it. Over these last probably 5 to 8 years, no doubt about it, even adrenal fatigue in the past, I used to be able to get so much better using every herb under the sun. But when I fixed my gut, that's when it all changed. That's when I was like, oh, I sleep better. I feel rested when I get up. I don't have pain in every one of my joints. And I would give excuses. Oh, I played rugby. I did martial arts, and I had all the excuses. I guess they could have worked, right? Yet on the flip side, healing up the gut. And here's the other thing I would say: the gut journey doesn't end. It does not end. We've been in these bodies for long periods of time. I'm not going to call them fragile, but they've been beaten up a little bit. So we don't get to go back. So people say, do you get to go out and have pizza now? Do you miss pizza? I think I miss pizza. I don't miss feeling uncomfortable. I don't. I freaking love feeling good. I love not being bloated. I love having predictable bowel movements every day. I love all of that. So the opportunity, and so if it comes through my voice or this message, or when I talk about, healing up the gut, it is a little passionate for me, because that is the thing that'll make all of the others change. Hormones, you name it. Every little bit of it, weight gain, weight loss, all of those things that so many of us are desiring and kind of going after. Clean the gut up, fix the gut, life get better.
So with that in mind, Bart, I have this last question for you. What is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
I'm going to go back to the first part of this, not even about the parasites. It's get clean and hold yourself a little, get tougher. You got it in you. Like literally, you're tougher than you think you are. You're tougher than you're giving yourself credit for. And I promise you, by getting clean, you'll never eat clean and be like, oh man, I wish I really screwed it up. It's like exercise. You never had a bad workout, right? You never been like, I shouldn't have worked out today. That sucked. So as you get cleaner and cleaner, it sets you up to make it easier and easier. And then the next step of your health gets easier and easier. So, but the biggest challenge you're going to probably face in terms of emotional challenges is going to be your nutrition. So get cleaner, and you can get clean. You can do anything.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Health Made Simple show.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys. Keep doing the thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading love here. And of course, continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. Gotta be awesome.